Hey, welcome back to Amy and this is of course Bad Romance Month, which I keep calling Serial Killer Month. I think every week I've called it Serial Killer Month, but it is Bad Romance Month.
We have spoke
Um,
a lot about serial killers.
yeah, we have.
We
It's
have.
basically
Yeah.
Serial Killer Month by default.
Yeah.
Um, I'm here with Abby and Peyton,
Hi.
and we are all on Ghana land, I believe. I'm here in Tantania, Adelaide, down by Parry, the River Torrens, and I'd like to pay my respects to elders past and present, and to also extend those respects to any First Nations people who may be joining us and listening to us today. I also want to acknowledge that this land has a kind of long tradition of storytelling and knowledge through storytelling, and we're really, really honoured to be part of that today. But today you're joining us for our interview with Shailee Thompson, the author of How to Kill a Guy in 10 Dates. It's her debut novel. It was a bestseller like within the week it came out, like jealous as wish that would happen to me. But it is a rom-com horror. So she calls it horror romance or horror rom-com. Actually delivers on both. It's our book of the month, so we are going to be reading it next week, everyone. So get your copies. We're not going to spoil anything today, but we're going to spoil it all next week. So get reading. It's a quick read. I think I read it in two sittings. Like
Just
really.
Yes,
one sitting for me.
it's
Yeah.
really
Any.
good, really
Sorry,
fun.
cutting you off. It is really fun, and it delivers both a slasher experience and a rom-com experience, which is really hard to pull off. So we're about to talk to Shaylee, which is very exciting. So Shaylee is in Brisbane, and she is a writer, and I don't know if she's still teaching, but she was a high school teacher in
Yeah, I think she
English
was
and
teaching.
drama.
Yeah.
Yeah, she may be a full-time writer now. Um, and she is obviously a horror and rom-com fanatic if you read the book. So thanks for joining us. We're going to chat to Shaylee now and we'll touch base again at the end. First of all, I just want to say what a fun book. And the covers, all the covers. Do you have a favorite cover of all the editions?
Okay, every time somebody asks me, I'm like, do not make me pick between my children, okay? Because they're vastly different and they all have these fantastic things that link to parts of the novel. But I do have a real soft spot for the slutty chest on the
Oh,
Australian
yeah.
cover.
Yeah.
Um,
Just gonna
it's
hold
it's
up.
beautiful, right?
Mhm.
And my publisher actually sent me home with like a big kind of pull-out sign that I can take to events now.
Yeah,
And
nice.
the
Is it the
slutty
slutty
chest is
chest?
front
Oh my
and
gosh.
center. And I'm like, how bad would it be if I just kind of had this in my home so that
Yeah.
I could wake up in the morning and just walk straight into a slutty chest? That would
Do you
be
know what I think you
amazing.
need is t-shirts that are just the slutty
The
chest, so that's
slutty
your head
chest.
coming out of the slutty
Yeah.
chest.
Yeah. So
Like those
I I
green
was
ones.
fortunate enough to have a chat with Cara, the designer, who is in the US but designed the Australian cover. And yeah, we just everyone loves the slutty chest, which is
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, it's a great cover. It's a really fun read, this book. So I'm going to let you try and describe it because
Yeah, sure.
we will have described it already, but I want to know how you put this into words because when you're an author, I think that is one of the worst things people ask you to do is tell us about your book. It's like
So
I've
tell
got
us
to
about
put
your book.
a hundred
What is your
thousand
book
words
about?
into a paragraph. Sure.
Yeah. Look, I've kind of got the pitch down pat now. So I'm like, I just kind of have to black out for a second and then like it comes out and then I come
Okay.
back. So How to Kill a Guy in 10 Dates follows film academic and cinephile Jamie Prescott. She's working on her thesis about the intersection of rom-coms and horror films and how they have a very similar kind of structure and impact on their audiences. But her roommate Laurie makes her take a break and they go to a speed dating event at a club that they used to go to in their early 20s. Um, while they're there, they don't really have high expectations for the night, but Jamie ends up meeting two guys that she has a spark with. But during her ninth date, there's a blackout, and when the lights come back on, her suitor has had his throat slit. After that, it descends very much into slasher territory where they don't have access to their phones and they're locked within the venue. And Jamie has to use this knowledge that up until now has been very theoretical to be able to survive the night. But of course, it's still a rom-com. She's caught in a love triangle and she's trying to fight these feelings while she's trying to fight for her life at the same time.
We were talking earlier this month about how it's actually quite rare to find a book that will deliver on both the horror and the romance. Do you know that they tend to skew one way or the other? But
Yeah,
in this
yeah.
book, you actually have a rom-com and a proper slasher. So I was wondering
Mm.
about balancing that when you're writing. Like, was that a challenge?
Well, that was the challenge from the beginning. Like that's why I wanted to write it was to see if I could actually do it. Because I was in the middle of querying a completely different book in a completely different genre when I started writing How to Kill a Guy in 10 Dates. And I set myself the challenge of trying to write the slasher rom-com. And because I was kind of like preoccupied with this other book, it was really just an exercise, and it was something that I did for the fun of it. And there was no rules. I didn't even start it going, oh, I want to get this published or anything like that. It really was this awesome, fun time for me to see if I could do that. And then because, these two genres are kind of accused of being quite formulaic, I found that it was kind of easy to put them together and to try to make those plot points work because they're both quite heightened in their natural states and they kind of lend themselves to that. So I think because I knew the rules, because I was just doing it for the fun of it, I felt comfortable in breaking the rules at the same time. And then that's how I was able to create, the kind of balance between the two.
That's so great. You just mentioned the accusations of horror and romance being formulaic, which is perfect because I was going to ask you about this because
Yeah.
you mentioned that in other interviews. We're all huge lovers and proponents of genre fiction, but we're well aware of those accusations. And I was wondering if you could expand on that and tell us your thoughts on those.
Yeah, I think I should come at this by saying that like I was a drama, English, and literature teacher for over a decade with high school students, right? So a lot of my experience is kind of like within the literary fiction in terms of like the classics and the things that are on the curriculum and breaking those down and analyzing them. But I love genre fiction as well, and I don't think there is anything wrong with following a formula or incorporating tropes or anything like that. And I don't think it devalues the text in any way. All it is like familiarity for the reader. And I think there's a very big difference between, genre texts that do follow a formula and something being cliched or stereotypes. And at the same time, I also love cliches. And you can see that I've incorporated cliches into the book and then also subverted them in some aspects as well. So yeah, I think there's a criticism there, but I think there is also kind of like this bigger issue where as soon as something is enjoyable or put into an entertainment category, it is criticized more heavily because it is enjoyable and it is entertaining and possibly it appeals to a larger amount of people, right? Like I have studied text and I have taught text to teenagers and you know, sometimes we would come to a book that has been lauded and critically acclaimed, and they'd be like, "I hate this." I was like, "Yep, I hate it too. I have not enjoyed
Yeah.
this." But we have to have a look at this because it does have that certain name for it. So yeah, I am always here for the genre fiction. I'm always here for like, the smut and all of that as well. Just because it's enjoyable and entertaining does not mean it is of less value than other texts.
Yeah, we've talked about this before because I think that it goes right back to the 19th century, that idea that literature should be educative and
Yeah.
that pleasure and education is somehow mutually exclusive, which I think is
Mm,
actually really dangerous when it comes to books for women and marginalized people, right? Because
mm.
often it's in these sites where the greatest dangers are, which links perfectly to having men as the threat, for example, in a slasher book
Yeah,
or a dating book, like going speed dating where the threat could be any one of these romantic prospects. I mean, I think that links
exactly.
beautifully to, of course, you would have it in a pleasure text, this kind of context.
Yeah. And I mean, Jamie mentions that in the story as well. She's like, I would be stupid to think that a man who is capable of kissing me is not just as capable of killing me. And it's like it's said in a kind of like very darkly humorous way, but like that's a thought that women have to have, right? It's something
Yeah.
that you have to kind of have in the back of your mind, especially in those kind of initial stages of dating. I remember having a talk with someone and they were like, you know, what do you think would be a warning that you would give to somebody who you know, went to this speed date? And I was like, well, share your location and tell people when you're going to be home. Like these are just things that we have to have in the back of our head
And
all the
like
time.
Jamie, take a friend. Like
Take a
Laurie,
friend,
like you always
right?
take a
And
friend.
it's such a weird, uncanny kind of experience to have where you're like, oh yeah, we're looking for love, but we're going to make sure we don't get murdered in the process of doing that as well.
This book is so clearly an ode to rom-coms and slasher films, but then it also so perfectly speaks to those modern dating woes really well.
Have you ever been speed dating?
Yeah,
Did
I
you
was
do it
just gonna
to as
Oh,
ask.
research?
I haven't, all right, but I have had a couple of friends who have. And I actually again drew on some of my teaching experience of parent-teacher interviews because
That's perfect.
yeah,
Amazing.
Actually
because
perfect.
you have these like 10-minute slots and you are meeting 28, you know, 28 to 30 parents or pairs of parents, or the student is there as well. That's always fun. And you're trying to like communicate this whole world of knowledge in a very small amount of time. So that
And
kind of
radiate, also radiate. Trust me. You can trust me.
yeah, I used to call it the charm and disarm. So I'd like just come in with like a smile first off. And then usually if I had like a parent and we knew that maybe the student and I had a, you know, didn't have the best relationship, I'd be like, yep, I'll do that. But I did actually have a couple of friends and colleagues who went on speed dates, and I was able to hear a couple of stories from that. So it was a mix of the two, and I think that was able to get that kind of awkwardness into that scene because the speed date doesn't really last that long in the grand scheme of the novel, right? But yeah, it was kind of like borrowing from analogies and also my own experience in a different context.
I think I'd be terrible. I really feel like I don't give the best for first 10-minute impression. I feel
Mm.
like you have to know me a few days before it works.
Right. Like there is all studies in it as well, and it still can be quite like a visual experience. I think
Yeah.
one of the studies I saw was that you know in the first 4 seconds whether you want to know somebody, and that is barely any time for them to say their name, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, I think it would just be because I'm the kind of person that when I'm in front of new people, I feel like I need to perform. I think if I would do that in front of 10 or 20 people, I would be exhausted by the end of the
Yeah.
night.
Yeah.
And I
I
would be
feel
like,
like I'd
get
only
me out
set
of here.
yeah, I'd only settle down after like the fifth or sixth person. Then I'd
Yeah.
be like, okay, I'm done now, so I
I'm
don't worry
done.
so much about like how I'm
Do,
presenting.
do you think you
Yeah.
could pick a serial killer speed dating? Any of you? Do you think you'd know?
Ooh.
Oh,
I think it's in the eyes, right? I think there's
yeah.
like a
Mm,
bit of that. I'm trying to think over all the true crime that I have
Yeah.
watched over my life, and I'm like, it's always the eyes. I would hope so after
Yeah, me
writing this.
too. I'd hope that, like,
yeah.
when you read about them, I always hope that your body would give it away, that your hair would
Mm,
rise and you'd like actually listen to yourself and not gaslight
yeah.
yourself.
I
Yeah.
think intuition and that gut feeling is just, you need to trust it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like I could pick a bad like a bad date or a bad boyfriend, but I'm not confident I'd be able to pick a serial killer because they're supposed to be charming, right?
Yeah, right?
Like they're
That's true.
supposed to be.
I feel like you don't trust superficial charm though, Abby. I don't think you'd be taken in. I
I hope
reckon
so.
you go
I'm
out for
also in
it.
the I hope so
It
bracket.
would make you suspicious. Like as soon as they're nice, you're like, what's wrong with you? What are
Yeah,
you
true.
Yeah.
hiding?
True.
Especially probably with Australian men who are notorious for like negging
Yes.
and
Yes.
apathy.
Yeah.
Too much affection is suspicious in this country.
Okay, I'm gonna just say I loved chapter one because I've been teaching this romance and horror topic for about 10 years. And it's really like you sum it up in chapter one, like this idea that romance and horror are kind of two sides of the same coin, actually, that
Hmm.
they're speaking to the same kind of human anxieties, but in totally different ways.
Yeah.
So I have a quote that I use in my topic that I'll just read out because I think it works. It's from Harry Berger, and he says humans have two primal needs. The first is a need for order, peace, and security, for protection against the terror or confusion of life, for a familiar and predictable world. I'm just going to interrupt and say that links back to your idea of the familiar story, that actually there
Mm.
is a value in the familiar. And for a life which is happily more of the same. But the second primal impulse is contrary to the first. Humans positively need anxiety and uncertainty, thrive on confusion and risk, want trouble, tension, jeopardy, novelty, and mystery. Now, normally we go to two separate genres for those, except I would say most horror films do have some kind of love story in there or romance in there, right?
Mm.
There's
There's always
usually,
kind of like that subplot, right? Between
yeah.
the between the final girl and her male lead that comes about. Um, and then, that kind of leads to her character arc because if he dies, then she somewhat has to like man up and strengthen up and avenge that. And if he survives, then that is her happy after.
Yeah,
Or
she
after,
gets her reward. Yeah.
she gets him. Yeah, so it is such a interesting kind of crossover there that was already in existence.
So in your book, there's a really interesting interplay about the horniness of horror. That actually horror makes them horny in the
Mm.
in the book.
Yeah,
So I was wondering if you could talk about that because
of
that seems
course.
like an interesting thing.
So I am so lucky that I found that study, Attraction Under Aversive Conditions. But that was one of the theories that someone sent me that they were like, I thought Laurie had taken Jamie to an immersive experience to kind of get her out of her writer's block. And I
Oh.
was like, that's a really cool idea. But how fucked up if you did that to your best friend and didn't
I
tell her,
know.
right?
I wondered if maybe it was going to be her supervisor. He was like, I
Mm.
was just helping you get some
Like
focus.
Jordan. Yeah.
I feel like this says awful things about me, Peyton.
She's having her head because she's our supervisor.
But yeah, so like looking into that study and seeing the physiological kind of reaction. And like we do see that, like sometimes the brain misinterprets signals, right? Like
Yeah.
that's why when we see someone that we're attracted to, our palms get clammy, our heart starts to beat, like, you can start to have these reactions
So it's all
that
arousal. It doesn't matter
match
what
fear.
kind of
Yeah.
arousal. Yeah.
So like that is misattribution of arousal, right?
Mm.
So finding that study, I do not think that it is how Jamie and Laurie interpreted it, but it worked for the novel, right? So
Yeah.
basically, the study was that people were shown photos of people and rated their attractiveness. And then they were shown like footage of anxious and fear invoking things. And then they rated the attractiveness again. And after being put through that kind of fear and anxiety, they were more likely to rate someone's attractiveness as higher. And so I was like, that is where we get afraid and horny from because I think it's more like on a biological level, we revert to being animals, and when we're in danger, we need to like procreate.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's like
Yeah.
Yeah.
we
Well,
need to
that's
keep,
very, very Freudian. It's like the life and
yeah,
death
right?
drive.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah. And that just kind of worked because in the end, I was like, well, it needs to be a romance as well, and it's set over a number of hours. So how can I show that kind of the attraction and the development of the relationship in that way? And it's almost like the Speed effect as well, like the
Yeah.
Keanu Reeves, Sandra
Yeah.
Bullock, relationships that are created under trauma. But I like to think that, this one has more of a happy ending though.
Yeah.
They're gonna
Yeah.
they're gonna stick together.
Definitely. Yeah.
We're not going to spoil anything because everyone's
No
reading it for next week.
spoilers.
We've got
No.
the book club next week. So come
Ooh,
to book club if you want the spoilers.
yeah, exactly.
Um, okay, so I was thinking as a technical challenge, like when you're writing it, so there's a beautiful map at the beginning of the book, which I love.
Yeah.
Like I kept
Oh, it's
referring
so
back
good.
to it. I'm
The
just gonna
map
hold
made
it
me
up.
anxious. It was a great opening for the story.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my God.
Yeah, you know what the funniest thing is? That map did not exist until my editors asked for it.
That was what I was going to ask is like, did you have a map and did you have a timeline and be like, oh, they're going to be here at this point? Or,
No, 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 no. It was all in my head. And the thing is, I was compulsively writing this for the first part of it. So I was on summer holidays and I had that kind of first scene in the speakeasy where the blackout happens. And I wrote 50,000 words in 5 weeks. So
well,
I
okay.
didn't have a holiday. And I wouldn't recommend that, right? But it was just something that I could see so clearly, like a movie.
I felt that way reading it. I was
Yeah,
like,
it felt like a
the
movie. It did.
excellent movie. Yeah.
Yeah. And also, I thought it like that's actually quite a hard thing to capture in literature is that pacing of a film. Like it really had
Yes.
that intensity of like scene, like and the kind of I don't know, tension is hard to maintain in literature, especially for this kind of word length.
Yeah, and it was, I try to make most of my writing cinematic in that way, I think. But yeah, my editor was like, "Look, we think we need a map," and I was like, "Oh shit, okay." And then I kind of had to, I had to go back
Retrospectively.
and like draw it, and I was like, it was a lot of drafts of that, and going back into the book, and then being like, "Oh, okay, well, I need a dead end here, and I need this." Does
Yes.
it actually make sense in reality? No, I don't think so.
I don't
Um,
know, the map was pretty good.
yeah,
Yeah, I
I'd
and
go
then
back to
notoriously
it.
don't
we
refer
got
back to maps, and this one I
yeah,
went back to multiple
we got
times.
an amazing graphic designer to take my sketch and make it what you see now. But I can tell you, I have learnt my lesson. Now I draw the maps before the book is written,
Yeah.
and it makes it so much easier than trying to do it after the fact.
Probably like 5 years ago, you wouldn't have had to do that. It wouldn't have been a
Yeah.
problem. No one would have asked for the map.
Yeah. Yeah.
I always wonder about these and if any authors get caught out for like not actually, because I don't think I would. I think it would not be a fully formed vision of topography in my mind.
Right. And I
I
think
would
that's
freak
why
out.
I was able to get away with so much as I was writing it because like it was just me going through
Yeah.
different corridors and not really being restrained by this place. Um, but it was also like editing Shaylee's problem as well when I came up
Yeah.
against these things. I was like, she'll figure it out.
And then I guess it not knowing gives you that sense of because they don't know where everything is. So you get this sense of them stumbling around trying to
Mm.
find the exit.
And Laurie and Jamie's knowledge of the place is based on very, very murky memories as well. And it has gone through a few iterations since they have been there. So, yeah, like there is this kind of sense of we don't know where we are.
Mhm. I loved it. It's so good and so disorienting. And then
Yeah,
Yeah.
when
funny
I opened
as
it and I
well.
saw that there was like one entrance, I hadn't even started the novel yet, and I was like, knowing the genres, I was like, oh no.
No, no.
Immediately had like tension just from a map, which is crazy.
Yeah. You want that anxiety straight away.
Yeah. Speaking of like parts that are in the beginning of the book before it even begins, there's a list you have here of the
Mm.
rules that are always referred back to by Jamie on like how to survive a slasher. Did you write these rules prior to, or did that come up as you were writing?
That probably came, so I'm a natural pantser, I should say. I naturally just write, write, write. So I kind of did a big brain dump first, and then I went back and plotted, and I knew that I did need that list from quite early on. So I hadn't finished the book yet. I don't think I was even halfway through when I needed that list.
Hmm.
So I think a lot of the rules are kind of like general knowledge because there are how to survive a horror film, how to survive a slasher list out there. We have Randy's 3 rules from Scream. Like it's a general knowledge. So what I was able to do was kind of do my research, create those rules, make sure that we came up against almost every single one of them in the book. and then try to break every single one of them as
Yeah.
well when we were going through that. So yeah, it came about quite early on in the process of writing.
Nice.
Is
Did
there
you
a you
Oh
go.
no, you go.
No, you go.
I was just gonna ask if you had a watch list of rom-coms and slasher films that you were watching as you were writing, or are you just such a fan of both genres that you kind of had them pretty down pat?
Look, my internet history was very IMDb heavy
No.
um, when I was writing this, but a lot of them I had already seen, right?
Yeah.
I am a big film buff, and I'm really lucky. I have friends who are big film buffs as well. I kind of was more confident in my rom-com arena, but one of my best friends is an absolute horror movie buff and got me into horror movies when we were in our like mid-20s. Um, and I also, a couple of years ago, I watched a documentary that goes for 4.5 hours called In Search of Darkness. And it's about slashes in the 80s, and it starts from 1980 all the way to 1989. And
Oh.
I was sat, like I'm there going, this is the most interesting thing I've ever seen. I love it. So I had a bit of that background knowledge, but yeah, any opportunity to go back and watch some of those movies, but I was able to incorporate some of my favorite movies into it. Like While You Were Sleeping is my favorite rom-com
Oh,
of all time.
that is
I
one
will,
of the most perfect romance scripts ever.
yeah,
Like it hits
yeah,
all the beats perfectly.
all the
And
beats.
just every time she tries to do something, she makes it worse. It's
Yeah.
amazing.
And it's like you could not make that film now. It is such a beautiful product of its time. And I don't think they expected it to be as successful as it was either. So like we love an underdog story. Um, but yeah, so any opportunity where I was able to kind of make little nods to my own favorite films, yeah, I completely did that.
So
So
good.
do you have, I mean, you mentioned Bill Pullman quite a bit in the acknowledgements and stuff. Do you have
Yeah.
like a rom-com hero that is your perfect hero?
Oh my gosh. Like a fictional character.
Yeah, yeah.
This is kind of going like we're going into like a different era of rom-coms, but I think Mark Darcy from Bridget Jones'
Yeah.
Diary.
Yeah. You've got
Beautiful.
you've twisted one of those quotes in here, which I
I did,
loved.
yeah. Yeah. I was so proud of myself for saying that the eye contact was as steady as like his hand was as steady as
Oh,
Colin Firth's eye contact.
yeah.
I was like, Shailee, you've done it. You can retire now. Uh,
That's the line.
There are some lines that you have to kill your darlings, right?
Yeah.
When you're going editing, but I was like, I will do whatever I have to
I will
keep that
fight to
in.
the death for this line.
Yeah.
What's interesting about Mark Darcy is he's kind of awkward. Like he's kind of lovely and awkward.
Yeah,
Like really
definitely.
uncomfortable in the whole romantic zone.
Like the first time we meet him, he's wearing a reindeer sweater, and you don't expect that from, the male lead, especially I think in a lot of the US rom-coms, like it's the female character that's very awkward, and then the male character kind of comes along, and
Mm.
there's it's like the divine moment. They have an aura around them. And yeah, I think it's just very endearing to have that progression of that character.
All right, now I'm going to flip the question. Which horror heroine is your favorite?
Ooh.
Mm.
Um, look, I think Sydney Prescott, because, we have Laurie Strode, and we have, all of those classic final girls. But I think Sydney Prescott was the one that I kind of came to first
Yeah.
within my slasher experience. It's kind of like, how everyone says like your first Doctor Who is your favorite Doctor Who? It's like your first final
Yeah, yeah,
girl.
yeah.
Yeah, your first final girl is your favorite final girl. I think Sydney Prescott, just because I love Scream so much in its meta-ness.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, so I think she's my favorite one.
Well, I think it's, and to talk about meta-ness, like it's actually a really hard thing to kind of not quite satirize, but you're playing with all of those texts. Like even the names of your two heroines are like references to other characters. but then you're delivering the experience. So there's so
Mm,
many complex things there. Like you're like doing this meta referencing to everything, but
mm.
then you have to deliver on the romance and the horror. And that's a big ask for a book. So
Yeah,
do you think it's because you were having fun and not overthinking it that it
I
works?
definitely think it's that. But I think having Jamie be who she is and be the voice of the novel really helps with that as well. Um, I always write in first person. I don't know if I could have written this book in third person and still kind of had that
Ah,
effect.
yep.
Um,
It'd be harder to keep the secrets in third.
yes, exactly. Yeah. But because Jamie herself has an interest in films, the way that she makes sense of the world is by relating it to the film scenes that she's seen and that she's studied. And she even says in the book, I can get through the night if I just imagine that I'm in a movie. And I think that that is what sets up the story to be so self-aware
Yep.
because that is how Jamie is able to get through the events of the novel.
Mm.
I think having it from somebody else's perspective, you're going to get a different lens of the story. And yeah, so I think it's two of those things. One, I was just having fun and I wasn't really caring about doing that.
Yep.
Um, I knew that I wanted it to be tongue in cheek and I wanted it to be self-aware and I wanted it to be an homage, but also, joking about things as well. But yeah, I think having Jamie being the protagonist and being the narrator of the story allowed it to explore that as well.
I'm going to hand over to you guys. I'm dominating, so you guys should ask some questions.
No, that's fine, Amy.
I was gonna ask you about Jamie and Laurie because they have such a beautiful friendship.
Mm,
And it seems like the book is almost as much about them as it is about the romance, and it feels
mm.
like it seems reading it that was important to you.
Yeah, they're
And
the real love
Yeah.
story, right? They are the real love
yeah.
story of
Yeah.
the book. When I first, I think this is where, especially when you're writing first person, things that are kind of happening in your personal life just kind of like shift into it, whether you want it to or not. Because when I first started writing, the only thing I knew was that I wanted Laurie to be more than the stereotypical best friend that we see in the slashes or that we see in rom-com. So that is, they are either very, very disposable or they're only there for the character arc of the protagonist. And that never really gelled right with me because that is not an accurate representation of the friends that I have or the relationships that I have in my life.
Mm.
But I did not realize that Laurie and Jamie and Laurie's relationship was going to be so important until I started writing their conversations and they just would not shut up.
They're so
Like
funny. Oh my goodness, they're so funny.
they
There's a
just
scene in the
wouldn't
bathroom.
stop talking to
Oh,
each other. And Jamie just wouldn't stop thinking about Laurie or talking about Laurie. And so at the same time that I was writing this, one of my best friends, like we used to work together literally across a desk with no cubicle in between us for almost 10 years. So she had just moved country and like I was basically missing her in that daily dynamic that we had. So I think this was me reflecting on that relationship and kind of writing a love letter to female friendships as well, because when you try to put yourself in that character's position, if they are with their best friend, you're not just kind of latching on to the closest man next to you. You want that person to be with you and to survive with you.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, so that was kind of not my intention, but it was such like a fantastic surprise at the beginning of the writing process.
Yeah.
Um, and after that, because this was at the end of 2023, in a very short amount of time, I wrote the book, I signed with my agent, we got the deal, and now we've released it. My friend has come back like she's back.
Oh.
And I was like, oh, do you think I kind of maybe like overreacted a little bit by writing our dynamic into a story? Because like I don't think I'm Jamie and she's Laurie, but there are conversations between them
Yeah.
that are very inspired by our
I really
dynamic.
love that they have silent conversations because that is such a thing you have with your best friend is to just meet their eye and be like,
Yeah.
oh.
Like, that it's the silent conversations, and I think women in particular are very, very skilled at this, right? Of being able to meet somebody's eye and not say a word but have a full conversation. And this is what I had with my friend as well. Like when we were sitting across the desk, we'd be able to look, and then be like, yeah.
Yep, yep.
So, yeah, that was very heavily influenced by us, and it was just fun to write as well. Where
Yes.
you do need to be a little bit more quiet and silent, so it's kind of like a superpower for them. It's a strength
Yeah,
that
yeah.
they can
Yeah,
communicate that way.
truly. It lends so perfectly those kinds of friendships and modes of communication between women. They keep you safe. They
They
really do.
do. Mm, definitely.
I also, this is a bit of a tangent, but
Please.
I remembered in another interview again, you mentioned offhand that you used to write fan fiction. And is that right?
No, I didn't write fan
No.
fiction, but I wrote anonymously on Fiction Press
Ah,
when I was like
Okay.
19. Yeah.
Yes.
Um, yeah, so I started off on Fiction Press, and I think it's very similar to those authors who start in fan fiction though, because I wrote probably two novels um from the age of like 19 to 21, 22.
Incredible.
My first novel was a rom-com, and it was 130,000 words long. So you can already tell she was a baby writer, right?
yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah. That's a novelist right there.
that is, yeah. But basically, what it was, in the same vein as authors who started off in fan fiction, it was me learning how to write and learning my voice. Because those novels will never see the light of day,
That was gonna be
for a
my
number
question.
for a number of reasons. I actually went back and started reading one of them this year, and I was like, oh, sweet summer child. Um, like they are literal rip-offs of books that I loved at
Yeah.
that time because I was reading my favorite authors, and I was trying to figure out my style and my voice. So they're
Yeah.
not original in any sense. They are just me learning how to write.
Mm.
But I think it was such an important time for me, and it was a great way to kind of be quite free and unbridled within that period as well. Like I said, I was 19. Like I
Yeah.
was I was a baby when I was doing it. So yeah, I think it's very similar to that fan fiction kind of path that we see a lot of authors following, where it's your way of kind of getting into this world and learning what it is you like and learning how characters and conflict work.
You
Mm.
mentioned you were writing something else when you started writing this. What other genre were you writing?
Yeah, so I was pretty heavily into romantic urban fantasy.
Yep.
So I actually
Mm.
made it onto Queensland Writers Centre's publishable long list with this book, and it was the first in a series. And I had been working on that book and its sequels for years. So that's why I think I just wanted to have a bit of a shift and a
Yeah.
break away from that genre. I still intend to get that published. But yeah, I'm having a bit of fun in this kind of
Yeah. So
avenue
the
now.
next one's going to be horror romance as well?
It will be a horror rom-com. Yeah.
Excellent.
Yes.
Yes,
And
we are
that's pretty much
happy.
all I can say. Like, I'm sure my publisher would be like, Shaylee, you can talk about it. And I was like, no, we must have
Oh,
secrets.
you never know. I never know when I'm allowed to say anything.
Right? I don't
Ever.
know when we're gonna release it because I just like I have a bit of a backlog because I've been writing for a while. But my publisher wanted book two based on the title. Like I hadn't even written it. I
Yeah.
just had the title. And I was like, oh,
Now I'm
okay, cool.
desperate to know the title and
I
you can't
I
tell
know.
know.
I'm
us.
so desperate to say it as well, but like, How to Kill a Guy in 10 Dates has only been out for a month.
Yeah, no, you can't be saying that. We'll just have to
Yeah.
bleep that whole thing if you
Yeah,
say
I'm just
anything.
gonna let it have a bit of time to breathe. I'm gonna keep editing it because I'm on that deadline. But I actually can't wait for people to know the title and the story because it's going to be very clear what it is about when we
Excellent.
release it as well. Yeah.
So can you tell me, have you found it's been very different writing to a deadline like this? Before you publish, you have that kind of, there's no real time. I'm like I might be aiming for a
No.
competition or something, but
Yeah.
where what's it done to your creativity having a tighter deadline?
I think because I come from that education background
Mm.
where everything is already like hurry up and
Yeah.
you kind of get hit with things randomly that have very short deadlines. I actually was kind of prepared for that, and I'm someone who I love structure so that I can be chaotic in it.
Yep.
So if I have like a timeline and I have goalposts, then I'm like, yep, I can work towards that. Um, Also, it's, even though aspects of writing and writing full time, you have social media, you have all different things that you need to do. It's again different to education because when I'm in the classroom, I have to think about 30 different people and the class I had before and the class I had after and the emails that are popping up on my laptop. So it's actually been very refreshing to just have, a handful of things to concentrate on.
Yep.
That might just be my experience, but because I've come from being in quite a reactive industry. So yeah, I love a deadline and I love a timeline because it's a very clear indication of what I have to work toward.
What did you learn about your craft in editing
Mm.
that you means that your first draft is better this time? Like, did you learn something through the editing process where you're like, okay, I'll never make that mistake again. I'll make other mistakes.
Yeah, I think I kind of learned this a little bit before, and this is why I was able to write How to Kill a Guy. I think I wrote the first draft in about 4 months, which was very, very quick for me. Separating writing and editing. So I
Hmm.
used to write and then try to edit as I went, and it just extends the period of that drafting
Hmm.
because you're always stopping and starting and going back and trying to make it better and never kind of progressing. It's like 2 steps forward, 3 steps back. Um, so I think that was something that I learned was having a very clear distinction between my writing time and my editing time so that I could, just get the story out and then worry about it later. I also learned that I really like editing. So I don't know if that makes me a bit of a masochist, but
I love
I
it. It's
do
my favorite
actually,
bit.
it's
It's
my
my favorite
favorite bit,
bit.
right? I say that to
Same.
my publisher, and I actually really appreciate having and I know how lucky I am to be a traditionally published author with a team around me. I've always worked in drama and theater where it's usually a very collaborative experience. So having my editors there to point things out and to give feedback, I just, I get fueled by it, and
Oh, they
it
would
makes me.
love you because some
Yeah,
people
they
Yeah.
do,
do not
which is
like
nice.
edits.
That's not even my ego. I'm like, I love you guys, and they love me, so it's we're good. Don't want to jinx it. But yeah, it fuels me, and because at the end of the day, I want to create the best product.
Yep.
It's my writing time. I am still that real artist, sensitive baby. That is my time. We can't do anything. But it's kind of like a brain switch. When I get into editing, I'm like, all right, yes, we can cut that.
We
Like,
can kill
you
all
know,
the darlings
we can
except
kill
that
all the
one line.
darlings. We can thank them for their time, do a bit of a Marie Kondo. They're not sparking joy, and we can put them into the dump document.
Yeah.
I still just want to know the title of the next book, but I
Yeah,
can't.
you can't. We can
Yeah.
we should just brainstorm what we think it could be.
Oh, true. Yeah.
What can I say? What can I say? It's another play on a movie title.
Excellent.
Oh, that's a
Yeah.
great clue.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're
We
gonna
won't start guessing, or we're gonna, if we get it right, then it'll be awkward.
Right. I don't think you'll get it, but
No, I don't think
I
we
feel
would
like I've got a
either.
good poker face anyway.
Yeah,
I can be
you
like, okay,
saw
yeah,
that
maybe
drama training.
not.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining us. It was
Thank
like
you so
such a
much for
delight
having
to
me.
talk to you. I feel like I was expecting you to be this animated just because the narrative voice is so animated. I was
Yeah.
like, no one who writes like that is not talking like that. Um,
I think
eh,
we put aspects of ourselves into our characters, right?
Yeah.
yeah. So I'm going to hold the book up again for those of you watching on YouTube. But it's How to Kill a Guy in 10 Dates. It's a book of the month. It was a bestseller within the first week of publication. So a lot of you have probably already bought it and read it. But if not, read it by next week because we are going to be diving in for book club and spoilers. Shaylee, thank you so much for joining us. We can't wait to see what you do next. And
Thank you so much.
congrats and happy book launch.
Cheers, thank you.
Thank you. I actually kind of expected her to be that bubbly because the voice is like a really funny, energetic first person voice. And
Yeah.
I was like, whoever writes this, I'm guaranteeing they kind of talk that way. And she does.
Yeah.
Learning
You
that she
can't.
was a high school teacher made so much sense, especially in drama as well. I was like, yeah.
Yeah, I can see
Yes.
this.
Like I had some great teachers at high school, but I would have loved to have her as a teacher, I think. It would have been so good.
Yeah. Yep. Um, Yeah, so I don't know. I could just talk romance and horror all the time. It was so refreshing to open the book because I feel like I've been banging on about this for 10 years to people, and you guys are probably in my classes, but about how romance and horror do speak to each other so well. Like you kind of don't expect like blood and death and gore to go so well with falling in love, but to me, they're kind of both speaking to our anxieties as human and what life means. And one is about kind of survival and the other one's about why you want to survive, like what kind of life you want to live.
You were so
Yeah.
right though, Amy, when you said that a lot of horror has the romance in there anyway. Because even if it's not horror specifically, but like post-apocalyptic or
Yeah,
anything that has those high kind of dangerous stakes I mean, everything has a romance subplot, but those
yeah.
in particular often do. Yeah.
Humans have a pretty strong horny drive.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Survive and have sex,
Basically, we're
apparently.
animals. We're
Uh,
essentially animals. Anyway, she was delightful. I enjoyed that a lot. And for those of you joining us, go get your copy if you haven't got it already. It is a really quick read. You will rip through it. And then we're going to be talking about it in book club, our first live book club of the year.
I know, I'm
so exciting.
excited.
I hope I remember how to wrangle you all live.
No, it's going to be two
Yeah.
hours long. We're
It's
going to
gonna
rant
be
about Wes.
that does seem to happen more and more now. We just keep going and going and going. So yeah, we will be talking about our favorite characters, the gore in this, the romance in this, the slutty t-shirts in this.
Yeah.
And yeah, so get your copies, get reading How to Kill a Guy in 10 Dates, and join us for book club next week. Hop on Instagram because the snack of the month and the drink of the month will be put up as well. We expect you all to kind of get a bit creative this year, and we will try and do it too, even though we got a bit slack last year and would just turn up with whatever snack we had. We're all going to be having a snack.
There
So
are only so many bottles of alcohol I can own at once.
we need to split a bottle. We need to just buy
Yeah.
one and share it out.
Yeah.
Yes, we go to Amy's and Amy pours us all out a portion of vodka to take
Yeah.
home.
Yeah,
I think the whole thing is just a giant ruse to get Millie to make us food and Amy to make
basically,
alcoholic beverages
essentially. Yeah.
recording.
I did enjoy, we did actually film us making them already for
That's
next week.
right.
And
Yeah.
I really enjoyed both of them this month. I think I
Really
had
good.
two of the cocktails while we were
Yeah.
together.
I need to figure out how I'm gonna make them. It's like a
Yeah,
slushy.
it is. It is.
Yeah.
It's not too hard actually, as long as you can crush up the ice. Go buy a red slushy, just tip a bunch of vodka in it. There you go, done.
Oh, there you go.
There
That's a
you
good
go.
idea.
Hot
We
tip.
promote healthy habits here on the
Healthy
podcast.
habits, 100%. Yeah. But don't drink, kids. Don't drink and drive. All
No.
right, but you can drink and read. So get reading. We'll see you next week and have a lovely week. Bye.
Bye.